This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
When addiction is part of your family, and it's part of many families, especially more so these days, it doesn't just affect the individual who is addicted to something, it affects everybody around them, especially the family. And when traditional addiction treatment keeps failing your family, that's where this gentleman and his many programs come into play and support. And a lot of times through this whole process, families are overlooked, but it's a big impact on them. There's a lot going on there, including guilt and forgiveness and so much more. The Family Recovery Solution is just that, the solution. We're going to talk about a masterclass that he is offering for families impacted by addiction. Jeff Jones joins us again on the program today. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steve. I'm doing well. Thanks very much for having me.
Good to have you back here, and thank you for doing what you do to help those addicted, but also for the families. There's so much emotion involved in addiction when a family member is dealing with it that, gotta say it, I've said it before, it seems like the families get overlooked, but they're a big part of this, part of the healing as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, they get overlooked for, it isn't any one person's fault, and it's definitely not the family's fault. They get overlooked because for years, probably centuries, we've just focused on that one person with the problem, and we have tried to change them. And there's a lot that gets overlooked. But so what I'm doing with this master class is it's for family members who have another family member who's either in active addiction or in early recovery. Because there's so much that families can do, and the old messaging is that they're powerless, that they have to wait, quote unquote wait. And the whole collective nervous system of the family just keeps getting more and more activated, and hence the walking on eggshells kind of thing. So,
oh my gosh. And there's so many dynamics involved there where it might be this whole scenario is pitting one family member against another family member for whatever the reason may be. And that's just the beginning of all the layers involved in that. With this masterclass, which is completely free, by the way, right. Can you tell us some of the things that just briefly, broadly, what family members of somebody addicted might be learning?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first things that I want to share is that the old approach does not include how the brain functions, really, and the impact that living with addiction and all the chaos and stress, the impact that has on the brain. And I think a lot of people know that just in general, but unless that is addressed first, then we have these expectations for people like family members to learn what's going on when their brain is in a difficult place to actually learn. And there's science behind it, but that's the essence.
So this isn't just about the things that families are challenged with: emotional overload, confusion, blame, and all of that. It's also getting into the science and helping the families understand a little bit better what's happening when somebody's addicted.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, there's things like, and a lot of people I think have heard this, is that, neurons that fire together are wired together. And what that means is as we do a behavior over and over and over again, those neurons fire together, and that firing together becomes like a deep path in the brain,
Mm.
and to where one thing happens and they fall into that path, and then it's just like, and they can't help but do the same thing over and over again. So that's the perspective from the brain. And then there's also, different ways to look at it from the standpoint of what specifically is the relationship that the family member has with this addicted person. Is it the mom
Mm.
who is oftentimes, wanting to do anything she possibly can to save her child, and she's oftentimes in like a rescuer role or a savior role? Or is it the dad? And I'm going on stereotypes here,
Sure.
and dads are more firm, and their role oftentimes in the family is to solve problems
Problems.
quick,
Yeah. Yep.
boom, 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 and dads get into the role of adversarial kind of thing. They can blame, and they can challenge things, and then it just creates this what's called the drama triangle. um, it creates a lot of mixed messages in the family.
Mm.
But one thing I want family members to know is this central relational dynamic that I just laid out there, and said, oh, this is like the drama triangle. It's like that relational dynamic is very personal, but many of the patterns in that dynamic started in the culture and continue in the culture, and it's impersonal. But when it gets into the family, let me tell you, oh my gosh, it's very personal.
Mm.
So I say that so family members can at least have a sense there's a lot of things going on here, and it's not just them. And even though they may not respond in the best of ways, on some level, from a coping standpoint, everybody's doing their best to cope.
Mm. You gave a little bit of it a moment ago, but I want to go a little bit deeper in that. If you were in a room with family members of somebody who's addicted, and let's say it's mom, dad, some siblings, maybe an aunt or something, what would you say to them? And I don't mean scenario specific. Every
Yeah,
situation is different. I got that. But broadly,
yeah,
what would you want them to know?
right, right. Well, one, I would want to be delivering messages of hope and express how much love is in the room, because these
Mm.
people are in the room by choice. And ideally, it would be framing that as a gift to the individual who has the addiction. The fact that their family is in the room and they care enough to spend their time to come together for that one person's best interest, to help save them, quote. And, you know, ideally, I would want to do whatever I can to reflect back and build on the love that's in the room. And so
Mm.
that's step number one, because that identifying that love is the opposite of the majority of things that can happen, where it's like, okay, we're all here to call you out. You
Right.
did this and you did that and blah, blah, blah. And of course, a lot of that is true. It isn't about discounting it, it's about also acknowledging both sides being, hey, there's a lot of problems. There's been some damage here, some wounds, some relational issues, but we still care about you. We love you. We want the best for you, and we see this as a gift that we want to give to you. So that's kind of
Hmm.
the broad framing.
You mentioned the last time we got together, the addiction cycle, and I've heard that term used a lot. Um, can you give us some even deeper clarity on what that is?
Um, wow. So in some ways, that's very simple. There can be a black and white definition of the addiction cycle, but in other ways, I think it's way more complex because addiction is mild, moderate, severe.
Hmm.
And so, the addiction cycle it goes round and round and round, and parts of that cycle is, you know, kind of starting with a faulty belief, but actually, I believe it's true. It's the whole truth, and nothing else is even worth considering. And so I believe it fully, and then I feel terrible, and then I need to do something to manage my feelings. And so that doing something could be not telling the truth. It could be diverting. It could be my trying to look perfect. It could be blaming someone else. They're the problem, not me. What? You're talking to me about my problem? Let me tell you, you have a problem, and all of that kind of stuff. So, then it comes around to relieving that anxiety with however people relieve the anxiety. So the individual with addiction relieves the anxiety generally with the alcohol, the drug, the substance. And then in the context of family members, once they become aware how they relieve their anxiety, and I've had people who kind of put this into a um, family recovery message to their loved one. And it is something like, um, and I'll just use you and I as an example, like, hey, Steve, I have realized something new here. And and yeah, I know that you're gonna, drink whenever you want to drink, and that's your choice. But I've also realized that I have a choice, and it's my responsibility to choose when and where I am around addiction. And the way I see it is there's you, the essence of my family member, and there's addiction who has come in and has capsized or taken you over. And it's like I am seeing that you know, use drugs and alcohol to get relief. But what's really new for me is I get relief by trying to save you from what I
Ooh.
see as the danger of drugs and alcohol. So, the addiction cycle, it, there's a simple way to look at it. Shame is also in there, but
Mm.
yeah, but it plays out differently for different people. And just because it's called the addiction cycle and it's talked about for that one individual, everybody in the family, they, kind of are, this isn't the right language, but they're infected by the black and white thinking of the individual with the addiction, and their thinking becomes black and white as well, you know?
Mm.
So my first aim with this master class, to let people know that there's mixed messages in the culture. There have been for decades or centuries. And when there's a mixed message, our mind automatically wants to come up with a black and white solution. And when we do that, we eliminate all the other possibilities. And our nervous system is activated and it doesn't allow us to see other possibilities. So by managing our nervous system, And once one person in the family does that, then other people in the family can set their nervous system off of them. It's called co-regulation
Mhm.
kind of thing. But then once the collective nervous system of the family starts to come down, there's so much more potential. So the master class is designed for the hub person in the family, for them to start getting some information. And when they start learning some things, then they can trickle it out to other family members. That's the process that I have when I work with people like a 9 month program one-on-one. The master class, if everybody in the family wants to show up, of course, they're welcome to do that.
If you believe in energy, and I do, and many people do, um,
Yeah.
if you're a family member or the family collective is has anxiety, is stressed out, is worried, and all pretty normal about that person who is addicted in their family, the addicted
Yeah.
person is going to pick up on that. They're going to feel that they might not know what it is, but they're going to feel like tensity going on there. And it's all coming from a good place, but maybe not the best for the person who is addicted and their healing process. What do you say to family members to stay grounded, calm, clear, uh, in the moment, present, which,
Yeah.
many say that was a game changer in my life. No addiction ever, but just being in the moment, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
I,
Being present.
I had somebody show up in my life 6 years ago out of nowhere. And they said to me, "Hey, how come you don't live in the moment?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" You're in the past, you're in the future, but you're never in the moment. No idea what they were talking about. Took me months to figure it out. And once I did, whoa,
Yeah.
this moment right
Yeah.
here, if we take it and we slice it, Jeff, what's wrong? Nothing. It's perfect. Right here. Nothing. Nothing's wrong. Um, how can family members stay grounded, clear, present in the moment, and
Yeah.
reduce some of that tension, that anxiety, that may be
Yeah.
felt by the
Yeah.
addicted person?
Yeah. Steve, I am so glad that you brought up the word energy because that is a very
Everything.
big part of it.
It's everything.
And so a lot of this is based on, we're all different people. And so some people, and I'll, use myself as an example, has a number of decades of meditating, for instance. So my body is used to that. And I've done that enough to where I can inhale into my belly and right away I can feel a difference. But let me tell you, the first number of years meditating, that was not my experience. I had to meditate for a long time before I could really feel a difference. The
Same.
reason why I'm talking about that is that if people have a history of, for instance, like meditating, that being on one end of the continuum, and the other end of the continuum is they have a history of, you know, being very anxious and any little startle thing that happens, something falls on the hardwood floor and makes a big bang, and I'm like startled. That's on the other end of the continuum. So it's like in this master class, like session 3 is aligned with the chapter in my book, the first phase that I go through when I work with the hub person in the family, and that is enabling health within your body. And I very deliberately use the word enabling because in the
Mm,
addiction recovery space, enabling means just one thing. It's a bad thing. And
mm,
we all know that enabling it means to make something easier. And when I'm conscious, I can either enable old patterns that reinforce addiction, or I can enable health. Health first within myself, health within my relational dynamic with my addicted loved one, and that could be changing my behaviors or my communication. And then the third phase is enabling health with how your family does family together.
It's so true because
So,
that word, enabling, often gets a bad rap. You're an enabler. Do you realize you're an enabler? You can be enabling somebody in a good way. But we don't look at it that way. It's always on the negative side. No wonder they're having issues. You're enabling it. It's just that word it got placed in a bad category, and it doesn't need to be.
yeah.
It doesn't need to be. So this master class that you were offering for free, how do we take advantage of it? I know that it's officially starting in a few days when this podcast is recorded. We're live now. However, down the road, can somebody also take advantage of it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for asking. So, the way that this is structured is it starts Saturday, March 7th at 11 a.m. Central Time, and it's free. And I know a lot of people won't find out about it until after that. And ideally, in my ideal world, everybody would sign up at the beginning and they would do all 6 sessions and they would fully, have a pretty good comprehension of what I'm offering. And the reality is that there may be very few people who do all the sessions, and people can come in session 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, and they can see one or multiple sessions.
How long is each session?
So that is a really good question, and on my schedule, I'm blocking out 2 hours for each one. And the way I'm going to do this, the format that I'm going to use is to have about have a topic and talk about it for like 15 minutes and then just stop and do question and answer.
Wow.
And then I'm going to go into another topic and talk about it for like 15 minutes or so and then do a question and answer on that. So because what I'm offering, like I'm not offering like, oh, here's the pathway, Steve. I'll just give you this PDF and then you just do it. It's more like what I'm offering here is coaching that can potentially transform the way someone looks at addiction and their role in it and choices they have to empower themselves to actually make change in their own life. And we all have the power to do that. And that change can ripple out to everyone else in the family, that addicted individual being one of the people in the family, but it'll ripple out to everyone.
Well, you prove it's not a cookie cutter solution. Every family is different. Every situation is different. There's some fundamentals there, but I love the fact that you do question and answers, and you're there to support. What's the starting point?
What's the starting point? Say a little more. What do you mean?
Starting point, either somebody working with you, learning more, or even just starting with the master class.
Well, the master class is no charge for people to show up session by session, and they I believe I have a virtual assistant who's helping me with a lot of the detail, and there may be a charge of like, I don't know, $47 or something well under $100 for the 6 sessions to have 30 days after the sixth session to look at all the recordings, and there will be field work at the end of each session. So that's an invitation to, between this Saturday and next Saturday when we meet, here are some things that you could be doing. And I have references for each session as to where this information comes from. And actually, I really want people to do their own research, because this isn't about Jeff kind of laying out this black and white solution and it's going to be just perfect for everyone, because that's not the way it is. And I guess I also want to say is that addiction could have progressed in an individual for so long that their family is just so burnt out that this may not be appropriate for everyone. It may be appropriate for the mom who hasn't given up yet. Ideally, this would be, when people first start to recognize, oh, there's some addiction stuff going on. And that's ideal in my world. And I think what I have seen is people don't really, well, they haven't expressed a lot of interest in what I'm doing until their loved one has been to multiple treatment centers. Like I'm talking 6, 12, 20 some, which is not unusual. And actually, there's a gentleman that I met who wrote a book. He had his son had gone to 20 some treatment centers, and he's no longer alive. And he wrote a book. So I'm recommending that book to understand the traditional approach to recovery, because that's an important aspect. And family members may be engaging with the traditional process. Now, they may not, because there's enough referrals. Like I refer a lot of things out, quite frankly, because I don't do everything. What I do that's unique is I have the family healing arc. And within that family healing arc, once I see, where more work can be done for them to actually be able to shift their thinking, their perspective, their healing, I may, kind of suggest, oh, this, or suggest that, or I have a lot of different suggestions. And I also realize that it's really most important here for me to understand that family members have their own values, and they can start with foundational, like religion, spirituality, or, what I have come to as divine law principles. And that is like foundational. And then all my suggestions, I ideally would like them to align with their foundational support.
Nobody does what you do.
I know.
It's the truth. That focuses on the family, because there's so much going on there. But ultimately, the family supports and helps with the person who is addicted, but they have to be at their best too. TheFamilyRecoverySolution.com. That's the place to start. Contact Jeff, learn about the masterclass. Thank you for being here today and breaking this all down, but also making it easy to understand for all of us. And I appreciate that. Looking forward next time we get a chance to talk.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.